Lots of good stuff to cover as part of today's session. So excited to talk through that with you, and you're going to hear from lots of different people as well as part of today's call, which is really nice. That's part of the beauty about what we do, kind of working together collaboratively over these sprints across the year. So in terms, you will have seen that we've just popped on record and co-pilot's happening as well. So if you don't want to be filmed, make sure you just kind of flip your camera off. But that's really just so we share it with the community, you know, and we use it just for our purposes as well, just to kind of recap on what was covered on today's session. But just moving forward, so here's the agenda. Here's what we're going to talk through. So we'll do a bit of a recap, because we're going to have a mix of people that have been part of the delivery plan for a while, people that are brand new, and that's really exciting and welcome. But we just want to get everybody up to the speed. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap on strategy in the 2026 priority themes. We'll then talk about Mobilize in 2026, and then also about how we're engaging more businesses. That's one of our priority themes for this year, sneak peek. We're going to cover that already. And then we'll also talk around tools and solutions and how we're helping business take action using our new organizational maturity framework that we are starting to embed across the work that we do. And then we'll just cover off the end of the session on providing about talking about the infrastructure, how all the sprints kind of fix together and kind of what next. And if you're not involved, how you can sort of kind of align yourself with the work that we do. It's good that you are joining us. So there's 4 of us on the call. You will hear a lot from Liz and Holly, as well as also the co-leads of the various work streams. And then you've also got myself and Angie on the call from Future.now as well. Please do, and I can see the chat going off as well, so please do introduce yourself in the chat, say hello, your organization, you know, kind of, you know, what kind of brings you here today as well. And anything else you want to share in the chat as well. It's always good just to answer any questions, hear your thoughts about the work that we're doing collectively as part of closing the workforce digital skills gap. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Liz to talk through the strategy in 2026 priority themes.
Thanks, Paul. And just to reiterate about the chat, what I really love is when the chat gets really going and people start building connections throughout the call. So do feel free to tap away with your thoughts. Anyway, look, let's remind ourselves why we're here. Now, Paul, I realise you're driving the slides, so
so I'm going to move on.
Let you get brilliant. I'm going to let you just try and work out when to keep up with me. So this will be quite fun, everyone. So if we get to the wrong point, you know, it's that we need some digital skill training, or maybe just some presentation training. Anyway, look, why are we here? We're here, Future.now, because we know that there are a lot of people, over half of the people in the workforce, that don't have the essential digital skills that they need to thrive. And we actually want to make sure that we've got a workforce that's got much better levels of digital confidence and capability, because that's all about how people progress and how they prosper. And from an organizational perspective, there are also huge benefits in terms of productivity, digital transformation, and talent gaps. So, you know, and if you haven't seen some of the work we've done around measuring that, I'd really encourage you to go and have a look on our website to see some of the data points that we've now got that just show some of the pound values that come through, both for businesses but also for individuals. So that's a little bit about why we're here, but let's be really clear. We've got a strategy. It's a 5-year strategy. We launched it last year, and it's all about how do we make sure that those 20 million people that don't currently have the essential digital skills are equipped with the skills that they need to thrive going forward. So that's what our strategy is all about. 4 strategic priorities: campaigning to get attention on this part of the problem, convening, whoever's up, just myself, and I don't think it was me. If anybody comes on, do just keep your microphones on mute. So we campaign, placing attention on this part of the problem. We convene, and that's what we're doing today. This is part of how we work, you know, articulating the issues, setting goals, and creating a shared plan. But then really importantly, we have our program of work, which is all about enablers and pathways, and we'll learn a little bit more about that as we go through. So yeah, so look, in 2025 we made a huge amount of progress. We focused on identifying and addressing the most pressing questions and challenges that organizations face, and you can read all about the progress we made in our our progress report. I mean, we're not great on titles here. So we've got a progress review in the 2026 plan. It'll be out later this month. It really brings through all of the activity and progress, but also strategically where we're aiming. So that will be out probably week after next. But I have to say, I helped write it. It's a very compelling read. So I encourage you. And we're happy to sign copies later on if you want to do. And we're not going to sign copies because it's a digital only version. But anyway, you get the point. We're quite pleased with where that's got to. But look, the strategy is working. The Routes to 20 Million strategy is definitely working. But in 2026, our emphasis has to shift to how do we have scale impact. And so there are two key themes that we're going to be really prioritizing, doubling down on this year. The first one is how do we engage more businesses, more organizations aware of the problem, aware of why it matters to them, and then taking action and helping them take action. That's the second theme. So what are the tools and the techniques and the solutions that we can provide to help it much easier for organizations to take action and help people build these skills? So that's all about where we're focused for the year ahead. Now, I asked Paul to put this slide in about 2026 and how we're mobilizing. Perhaps you could head on to the next slide, Paul, because conscious that some people might not know how we work at Future.Now. So we do a couple of things. We do many things, but we do a couple of things. One is we help organizations directly, particularly those who are members of Future.Now. But we actually, more importantly, in my opinion, we coordinate activity. So we bring communities of individuals together and organizations together to work on the big ticket problems. And that's what our sprint program of work is all about. So last year, very successful campaign around those 3 sprints that we ran during the year. We're going to run a similar cadence this year. So 3 10-week sprints over the year, starting in January, starting in May, and starting in September. You get the summer off, and you also get Christmas off for good behaviour. Those people that have been involved know that we are only joking. Actually, we do make them work at all times. It's terrible, but in a really fun way. And this each sprint has a certain kind of rhythm to it. So we kick off each sprint with a kickoff call. We then have this call, what we call the Midpoint Connect. And then we have an end of sprint face-to-face workshop. And this Midpoint Connect is a really important opportunity for teams to come together to share what they're thinking their priorities might look like, what they've done, where they are, what's going. And it also provides an opportunity to build connections. So already for example, we're going to hear a little bit later on about some of the work we've been doing, looking at how you break the cycle for young people. But we know that's got real connection in with education, and we've got an education sector team. So today is all about people just kind of sharing where they are and allowing people to kind of understand the breadth and depth of the program. But the other thing that this does, and this is about just understanding how we all work, it provides that kind of impetus to get us over the line for the end of sprint. It kind of acts as a bit of a check-in to go, oh, are we ahead? Are we behind? Where do we need to be? And everybody kind of tends to use this as the moment to kind of bring it together. And then the end of sprint workshop, face-to-face, it's normally a chaotically brilliant afternoon of energizing updates of what's happening and what's been working, and really gives people a real boost as we're kind of tracking progress. So some teams are in early stages, so this sprint is all about planning, but for some other teams they're much more in delivery because they've been running for some time. So you'll see that as we go through and we have some of the updates, it will talk about what some teams are mobilizing and some teams are active. That's just about the cadence of activity as we go through. So that's just kind of giving you a little bit of structure about how we're working. But as we said, one of our big priorities this year is about how do we engage more businesses? How do we get more organizations understanding this problem and seeing it as being relevant to them, and then wanting to help people build those skills? So last year, we tested 4 different pathways to reach both organizations and people. And the one that proved much more impactful than any of the others was sector. That's about getting to people through the place that they work, through the kind of sector that they work in. And so that's going to be our primary focus this year, really scaling our work around sectors. But we don't want to lose focus on place, which provides another important perspective. And there are 3 other important audiences that will be part of our strategy this year. The first is people who are not in work, because if we just go with the sector side, that really tends to talk to those people who are already employed. And there is a huge issue with people who are not in employment needing these digital skills. Small and medium enterprises, we can't lose sight of their requirements and what works for them. They are the biggest employers in the UK, so they're a hugely important community. And then the final one is young people. And we're very clear, Future.now is all about people of working age. But, you know, and we call this one an influence pathway because this isn't our core business. But the thing about young people is they tend to get older. And if they get older, they come into the workforce. And if they haven't got these skills, we never break the cycle and our work will never be done. So we do need to reach down and work with others to do that. So that's going to be part of the lenses that we apply for this year. But as I say, our big priority is going to be sector. So let me just tell you a little bit about where we are with sector. Unfortunately, the team at Marsh, who are overall sponsors of the sector strategy, couldn't be with us today. In fact, I've got a call with them immediately after this call going through this. But basically, our priority here is mobilising more sector-focused teams. So we want every sector to have an action plan to raise business awareness of the need to help people build the essential digital skills. And that kind of is absolutely where we are on this piece. So a couple of things that we've already been doing. We've refreshed the sector heat map for 2026. In a minute, I'll give you talk a little bit more about the heat map, and we'll be publishing that as part of the Routes to 20 Million progress update later this month. We've also looking at how we report, how we show the sector progress on our website, and we've got work on that underway with our agency. As I said, we've got a working session with Marsh on the strategy and priorities, and that also includes looking at what the success criteria are going to be for our sector work this year. So how many sectors should we be targeting? We've got 4 that are live already from 2025, but what does that need to look like going forward? And how do we really measure business engagement? So we've currently got over 220 charter signatories, but what would good look like by the end of 2026? And being candid, you know, that needs to be in the thousands. So there's a number of other things on there, but I'm not going to dwell on that any further. I'm going to go on to the next slide. So look, sector heat maps, really important, because what it does is it gives you in a nutshell a visibility of what's happening in different sectors. This is the previous version that we did. The format, as I said, is being refreshed. So when you see the new one, it's going to show you the percentage of workers in each sector that can do all the tasks. It's going to tell you whether that's gone up or down from last year, whether it's improving or worsening. And it will also tell you if the sector is mobilised, which means we've got a team in place that are working on awareness raising and developing that action plan to bring others along. And it will also tell you the number of charter signatories that we've got in each sector. But you know, the key message is for this year, many more industry leaders are needed to kind of step up and lead action in their areas, working as co-leads. So that's our aspiration. Always good to tell you what things are looking like currently, and the education team will obviously be very pleased that they're 64. They've got 64 charter signatories, and those you know, those numbers keep rising. But overall, we've already got a reach of over 2 million. But you know, when you look at some of the data and you start to compare and contrast, which is why we want that heat map to have charter signatories on, retail unfortunately is one of the lowest performing sectors, and we've only got 1 charter signatory. So anyway, let's keep going. That's gives you a snapshot. Now an opportunity. Every year, thanks to the wonderful team at the City of London, they gift us the Guildhall. And for those of you that have been before, the Digital Skills Summit, the Workforce Digital Skills Summit, is a really brilliant day of energy and activity, really giving people the opportunity to hear from thought leaders, but also do some practical stuff. So we've got the date. It's going to be the 22nd of April. As I say, it's happening at the Guildhall. This is a really important opportunity. We need to make sure that every single one of those seats is filled, but we need to make sure that every single one of those seats is filled with the right people. So we absolutely want, you know, some retail people there, for example. So co-leads, this is if you're working in a sector, this is a prime opportunity for you to bring in new organisations, and we'll be following up with you on that. Strategic partners, you're going to get 5 priority seats. So who can you reach in your network? If you're a Future.now member, you'll get 1 priority seat. Delivery plan community, we'd love you to register. It's going to be first come, first served. We are going to put on cap on numbers per organisation because we want to make sure we've got that spread. But we'd really invite you to help us make sure that every single one of those seats at the summit is being really targeted. So I'd love to, for example, see lots more local government people there. I'd love to see retail there. I'd love to see the places that we're not currently reaching into. So real opportunity there, as I say. So QR code, you can book your own spot. Okay, look, more than enough from me. Thank you, Paul. That was a very good segue. Is Naomi on? What I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to each of the teams that are live to take you through some of their plans and proposals for the year ahead. The thing to remember, or two things to remember, these are emerging plans. We're only halfway through this first sprint of the year, and the first sprint of the year is all about standing up activity. The second thing to remember is that when they provided this information to us, it was across a number of slides, and we have taken the opportunity to consolidate it. So some of them may be looking at this going, this is not quite how I gave it to them. So they may have a moment of kind of recalibration. So bear with us. Is Naomi on though? And are you happy to take us through construction and infrastructure?
I am, yes.
Hey.
The slide is not a surprise to me because Holly had pre-warned me that it was going to look slightly different. So thank you. And thank you very much for dealing with the lateness of our construction and infrastructure submission. Yes, unfortunately, I'm recovering from a nasty flu, so delayed slightly in getting this across. But yes, we have been making progress. So towards the end of last year, we sort of planned our key activities and goals for this year and have been starting our work to achieve those goals. So firstly, looking at that, how do we reach more organisations within our sector? And we've developed a programme of sector events which we plan to attend. So representing Future.Now, explaining the importance of digital skills. So we started a bit of this last year, and really it was really clear that because we're only a small group of people who are trying to achieve a lot here, that if we can go to large scale events, one person can have a huge impact, can meet lots of potential new members of Future.Now, lots of organisations who are interested in hearing the digital skills message. So that's the kind of the model that we want to follow this year. It's a small number of us going to large scale construction and infrastructure events, meeting as many organisations as possible. So we've got that list of events. We're now just kind of planning how we manage that between us. We've got some great material that Rich helped us with last year. So yeah, we've kind of got a plan there in terms of those events. So it's just a matter of finalising sort of speaker engagements at those and working out kind of the best way to manage that. Joe and I have also been talking about kind of LinkedIn campaigns. So Joe, Aurelie and I going out, having more of a presence on LinkedIn, reaching our contacts on LinkedIn, and just that continual kind of sharing of the digital skills message to further reach more organisations. Other activities. So in the past, I've talked about the importance of subcontractors in our sector. And so specifically within Amey, we're refocusing on training delivery to subcontractor organisations. We've identified one of our particular contracts where we're now planning a training rollout, which will be a combination of Amey employees and subcontractor organisations. So within one room, a mix of that group of people who are all really important to delivering a contract, and the level of digital skills is important regardless of who your employer is. And we will use that then as a model to kind of roll out further. But that's important for us, because that is a really good way of really engaging with that subcontractor population, and we'll have a sort of captive audience who we can then talk to about Future.Now and digital skills more widely. So that, yeah, really pleased that we're able to do that, and we've got that contract identified. We have been engaging with other pathways, so particularly the Not in Work. Joe, who I think is on the call now, if I start, Joe, but kind of chip in if you want it. So Joe's been leading on a brilliant piece of work with Redbridge Council and the Not in Work pathway, where there's been an initial skills assessment, delivery of training, then follow-up skills assessment, and then evaluating the success for those individuals in terms of finding work given their new digital skills. So that's really great piece of work and a good collaboration between the two pathways. Also on the Not in Work piece, so Amy have had an initial engagement there, and we've been discussing the work in the Southwest with Cosmic and looking at what we can do there, and are engaging our HR people in that piece of work.
And we'll hear more on that later, Naomi. So Julie's
Yeah.
going to give us an update on the brilliant work that's been happening down in the Southwest. I mean, I think what really comes through is the key reason why we work like this is because everybody that works in a sector, you have understanding of what matters to your community, and you also know what the events are. So it's much easier for you to be the leaders and actually bringing your, the leaders and the role models within your sector. That's great. Thank you so much. What we will do is we'll pick up with you separately. This is going to be the case for everybody, I think, as we go through saying, actually, what does your 2026 goal look like? What's your big headline that you want us to put, for example, on the website when we've got stuff about what's going on there? I'm going to hand over now. Thanks, Naomi. Really brilliant.
Can I just suggest we come to Thomas next, because Thomas has to leave at 2:30. This is mobilising, but just good for Thomas in case there's anything from your side around government that you wanted to share with the group today around this piece.
Thank you, Holly.
Indeed, and Holly, you're very fairly telling a story by the blankness of this particular template. But maybe to allay some fears, it's not the case that sort of like our thinking in government is blank about this. So a few things have happened. Our number one objective is to make sure that across central government departments initially, and then potentially using some of the reach that we've got in government out to local government, we find a way to drive adoption of the charter and signatories to that charter. And then critically, we follow that with, I suppose, evidencing how we're raising the floor of digital skills across all civil servants, and then ultimately public sector workers. Already the government skills unit has taken steps to align our internal learning curriculum to the essential digital skills. We've got a handful of departments and local authorities that have adopted and are signatories to the charter. The next step is for some sort of like enterprise approach. And the good news is that we've recently appointed to a couple of new leadership roles that have been given the job of making this happen, not necessarily making signatories happen, but making sure that we have a coherent plan to drive skills in government. And we'll do offline. So Holly and I have been in a bit of dialogue, and we'll have in the coming couple of weeks just a further conversation about how we mobilise that, and hopefully bring back a fuller template to the next or the end of sprint conversation.
And Thomas, no apologies needed for blankness at this point, because that's what this process is all about. This process is all about enabling us to kind of, well, actually just hear where people are and what's going on, and then also get some inspiration from others. And, I know that, for example, there's been a lot of work going on in the government sector. We've seen a number of charter signatories from different departments, and we know how difficult some of this can be. So thank you. We're very excited to see this filled in. So we'll work with you on that over the coming weeks. I think we're going back to education, are we? Hey, thank you. John, I think you're joining us. John from Gateway is joining, I think, to give the update on this one. John?
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Yes, and I too was forewarned that the slides had changed, so so not too much of a surprise to see them all combined. I think our focus mainly really has been around thinking about how do we get out beyond sort of the FE sector. That's where most of the connections that we've got in Gateway qualifications are. That's where most of the connections, I think, that the original sort of members of the work stream were, but we recognise, in common with the sort of 2026 aims that actually to reach more organisations and businesses, we need to be trying to reach more areas of the education sector. So we're focusing really on trying to recruit some workstream members that are from other sectors. We've had some initial conversations with them. I don't think we've got anyone to confirm just yet, but we're also thinking about that in our workstream meetings as well when we get together, in terms of where have we got people already on the team who have got those connections, but also who else might we be able to bring in. So that's where we're sort of focusing on that. We've also found, I think, from some of the engagement that we did in the previous sprint, that to be able to show people kind of what the benefits of getting involved are is important. So we're looking particularly to pick up some more case studies. We've identified a goal, I think, of 4 by the end of the year, but we want to get our first one done in this sprint. So we'll be looking at looking at how to do that. We've approached a few organisations to see what we can do there. Again, I suppose similar to the first goal, really, we're looking to expand the workstream team. We recognise that obviously there's a lot of ambition that we've got, and delighted that we've got people joining from the Federation of Awarding Bodies and NCC Education. We're having a workstream meeting on Thursday this week, so if there's anyone else who wants to join or wants to suggest anyone that we could get in touch with, then do let us know. But again, that's one of the key areas, I think, of broadening what we're able to do, is getting more people involved. And similar to what Naomi was saying about sort of sector events, we found that worked quite well for us in the previous year. So we're continuing to do that, both at larger events where we look to try and get a workshop slot and do and deliver that. We're always talking about it, particularly when Gateway Qualifications has a stand anywhere, but also at the networking events that the various of us attend, of different shapes and sizes. We had some flyers done last year so that we can hand those out, and we're always sort of encouraging people to sign the charter. So it's good to see that we've got a good number of signatures of that. So we'll continue to do that, and then following up as well through things like webinars and the follow-up that we do after those kinds of events to try and encourage people to take at least take the next step in their journey.
And maybe unsurprisingly, the education sector have also been very good at kind of flagging to us some of the core assets that you need. I mean, you did a great job. I mean, look, I've got this on my desk. Gateway Qualifications did this brilliant little pack of the slides that we use regularly, but actually helping other sectors see use those kind of resources, I think, is something I'm going to be talking to Marsh about how we bring that together in a way that means you don't have to do the work individually, but actually we've got some core engagement materials for you. I think that's going to be very important. Oh, Holly, I see your hand's gone up.
I'm trying to be polite rather than interjecting.
Okay.
We wanted to build on one point that John mentioned. There's an opportunity at the Apprenticeship and Training Conference on the 2nd of March. We're delivering Future.Now and Gateway up in Liverpool. We're delivering an afternoon workshop, and there is an opportunity for an employer member to come with us. So if you're one of the team who within your organisation have been doing some of this upskilling and want to come and share the story of the work that you've done and would be up for joining us, then could you let John and I know, because we're doing our own outreach, but actually this felt like a good opportunity to flag it with this community. So let me know if you're available to join us for an afternoon in Liverpool on the 2nd of March. Thank you.
Brilliant. They're rushing. They're all rushing now to book their trains. Right. Medical health and care. Now, what's the answer here? Do we have one of the? Oh,
D. James said that D is going to be representing the team today.
Brilliant.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, in terms of what my organization has been doing, one of the main factors has been promoting Future.Now to our network, and as you can. I can say that from last year, we've kind of met our target in terms of what our target in terms of numbers of chapter we're trying to get. We've increased. However, we continue to promote the Future.Now. We have a summit, Adult Social Care AI Summit that we're looking to attend, so that we can promote the network as well. And in terms of working with independent healthcare, we are actually still working with IHPN to help boost digital confidence for everyone within the sector as well. And currently we have sent out a survey to different organizations to see where things stand as of now. And we do have in the pipeline to have a focus group with those already are members of the Future.Now to see what how they find the resource and to find ideas how we can promote the network as well to the rest of our network. Currently, regarding Ramsey Healthcare is making the most of its global reach by chatting with teams at Ramsey Australia and ASEAN, which basically the goal is to share ideas and share what we have learned, and then to make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of digital and data confidence. Currently, we are working on a business case as well for guidance and outlook framework that which we already completed, and we're looking to submit it within the next 3 weeks. So yeah, that's what's been going on.
Thank you. And I mean, the thing that's really interesting with the medical health and care sector is the team have, as you know, most of you will know, they split it into 4 subsectors, and each one of those is working through what their goals are going to be for the year ahead. So thanks for that, really helpful. And I mean, I think all of this shows the teams that are there are really clear about what they want to do around raising awareness this year. Some of them have already set some strident goals in terms of starter signatories. Others, Thomas, I'm looking at you, have got some opportunities to put their numbers. Oh no, your numbers are in there. It says +20, so you're up and running. So, but it's all about how do we get more sectors, and how do we also package up some of that best practice work that you've already started to do to make it easier for others that are following on, because you guys are the trailblazers. But Holly, I'm going to hand over to you because you're going to tell us about what's happening beyond sectors, aren't you?
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. So as Liz mentions, sector is obviously a big focus for us this year, but we know that there's such a huge network of organisations from that regional perspective. And as you saw in the sector one, we've previously used our heat map model to show what that gap looks like. In the same way that we're refreshing the sector one, we're refreshing the place heat map, and that will also come out as part of the progress update in the next couple of weeks. But you're going to hear some more from Julie and the team down in Southwest shortly, because there's a huge opportunity to build on the grant investment that we've got around our pilot in the Southwest to really document what we've learned so far, set out what that opportunity is. It's very timely, and I'm sure Julie's going to mention this, at least in passing, around the local skills improvement plans. The time is now really to start engaging regions, but we want to make sure that we're clear on actually what is our guidance to the people who are operating in this space and how can we help them to really get moving on this piece. So place continues to be a really important avenue for us, but we know we've got to do some of that early work to make the most of it. The other thing that's important from a place perspective is that's probably the route that we're going to reach SMEs, because that's the level typically that smaller organisations will engage with their chambers of commerce, the Federation of Small Businesses. You know, some of those network organisations for small business quite often work on in that regional dimension. So that's another route for us to get to that community of small businesses and also those not in work. So it's a really important aspect for us to keep on our radar very much. But more from Julie on that in a little bit. But Liz, why don't I hand back to you around young people?
Well, yeah, I was hoping that either Julia.
Is Polly here? Because Polly was going to join.
Anyway, maybe not. So look, breaking the cycle. I said earlier we have to break the cycle with young people, making sure that they're coming in equipped with the skills that they need. And as a result, we have a discrete work stream on this one. The co-leads are in place. I'm really delighted. We've got Julia Adamson from BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, and Polly Morgan from IDEA, who are co-leading this. Polly was hoping to join, but she has got a board meeting today, so we'll kind of forgive her. But, you know, they are absolutely committed to this about how do we raise awareness among stakeholders working with young people of the essential digital skills and how they can bring them into their work. We've had an initial planning session last month. There's some updates on there if you want to read them. I mean, BCS are doing a lot of work around the national curriculum review and very much saying, you know, there will be some groups that will be missed by them. So really being clear about where we need to prioritise attention. And we've got a follow-up workshop planned for this month. So to turn, you know, where we've got so far into an action plan. So it's all systems go on this one for this year, so I'm very excited about that. So looks good. So okay, let's me hand back to you actually, Holly. We're playing a bit of tag team here, I think. For the other priority in terms of our theme for this year.
Fab. So you've heard lots about engaging businesses and how we're expanding that reach. Lots of you will have been involved last year around some of the enabler projects, and we focused clearly last year on some of those big systemic barriers, and they're typically the things that people were coming up against when they first started to try and take action on this piece. So one of the things that we know is important now is, based on all that content that we've collectively created, there's a lot there. So actually we know that there's a job to do to start to slice and dice that information and make it really easy for different audiences to pick it up, to use it within their own businesses, to use it to engage others. So we know that that's an important job to do. And when we think about how we structure our work this year around tools and solutions, there's two things that we're going to do. So one is that we're going to keep an eye on what those big systemic issues are, because we can't take our eye off the ball on those. But we're going to do that alongside our new focus, which is all about curating the tools and solutions. And we're going to map that to give it a bit of order and structure against the organizational maturity framework. So that's the diagram you can see at the bottom of this slide. Those are the 5 stages that if you're a new business or any business and you're looking to build the skills in your organization, you will typically go through 5 stages. Identify where you're starting, understand your baseline, the levels in your business at the moment, build a business case to set out why taking action it is valuable to your business and get your senior support. You then move into designing your program, implementing it, and then testing it and improving and scaling and starting to see those benefits come through. What we're going to do is start to look at what resources we've got, line them up against those 5 stages, and by doing that, start to identify where we've got gaps, and in conversation with you, understand which of those gaps are the most important ones for us to collectively close. So if you go on to the next slide, please. So this will be a work stream in its own right. The work that we're going to do this sprint, we're probably going to do within Future.Now in the first instance, which is just to do that first mapping. So understanding what we've got, mapping it by stage, starting the conversation around where we think those gaps are, and also looking at it from the perspective of, for our members, what are people needing? What are they valuing? How do we use this also as a way of shoring up the charity from a sustainability perspective? Because there's so many different ways we could cut this in terms of what we help people to have access to outside of membership, what becomes a draw for membership. So we have to do it in a way that means that we also create a sustainable model for the organisation. So we're going to start that this sprint, and we have started it. So we thought we'd just give you a bit of a peek into what we've started to do. This gives you a bit of an indication, but there's obviously more work to come on this. But the way we started to think about this, and this will probably be particularly relevant for those of you on the call who are new to us and have just signed the charter or have just become a member, these are possibly some of the questions that you're asking yourself, which is why you come and become part of this coalition. What skills do you need to build? What's the best framework? What about AI? How do I measure it? How do I build the business case and show return on investment? And maybe it's all about the economics, but maybe it's actually about the social value and the story that you can improve lives of the people in your organization and those around them. And actually, when it comes to designing it, who's doing what and what can you learn from? And, what works and importantly, what doesn't? And actually, what help can we give you? So we thought about the questions that lots of you ask us when we talk to you. And if you just flip onto the next page, what we've then started to do is just start to group the assets that we have around these stages. So, for example, at that first stage, when you're thinking about, goodness, where do I even start? What skills do I need to build, and what framework should I use? We've got the Essential Digital Skills Framework. We've embedded it last year with AI, so it's now that's updated within the framework. So it's not just another framework that you have to kind of get to grips with. We've got the national data from Lloyds, so without doing anything else, you could still get a view of the skills and the levels of gap likely to be in your organisation. But if you did want to measure it for your business, because quite often we know that organisations like to have something local to their own workforce, if you sign the charter, we can then send you a free resource, which is enabling you to baseline within your organisation. And the data shows that actually when you get people to self-assess, nearly 90% of people then feel more motivated to close their gap because they know what the gaps are. So that's the first stage. The second stage is then about the business case. So that was a huge amount of work done collectively last year around understanding that economic impact. So we've got data points that you could use to justify any kind of financial investment in upskilling. We've uncovered a whole load of social value. And I love Julie's post that you put on LinkedIn after saying you've been doing this for 30 years and you wanted data like this that told the story around how doing this work improves people's lives, whether that's loved ones, public services, employers, all sorts of things. There's this big ripple that comes from it, and actually that becomes a very powerful story to weave into the business case to justify why this makes sense and why this is important. And Dee mentioned it earlier. This is now in the NHS One Digital Business Case for the first time ever. There hasn't ever been an essential digital skills bit to the business case, and now there is, because this data has enabled James and the team to go and land this powerfully with those stakeholders. That's available to everybody. If you want more granular detail for our members, we've then got the calculator where you just key in your sector, your size of business, your region, and it starts to give you focused data that you can use for your organisation. So that's another example of what we give to members. And finally, just looking then at that first stage of designing your programme, the Learning That Clicks report sets out those actions that work. The number one is digital champions. There's other things in there around gamification. There's techniques and ways that you can build your programme, and it's backed up by case studies and evidence from real life employers. And then for more support, our members can then access the directory, which enables you to search. Once you've done your baselining and you know your gaps, you can search for the skills and the training programs that can help you to close those gaps. So we're starting to, this is just a bit of an early view really of how we're starting to think about the assets, start to package it up in a way that puts the organisation at the heart of it, so it's easier for people to navigate. And hopefully, if those of you who are out there in the marketplace talking to other organisations, starting to package up the content like this, hopefully will make your conversations more tangible and specific and easier when you try and engage, you know, those new audiences. So that's the tools and solutions. I said as well, the other thing we're doing is keeping an eye on those systemic barriers. Clearly, having a future fit work skills framework is a fairly fundamental thing. So let me hand over to Matt and Kerry to give us the update on this piece.
Hi. So in our work stream, we've been working quite a while on the sort of framework ownership, how that sits within the government departments, and the review process around that to make sure it keeps current. And obviously we've updated, as Holly's referred to, the framework for work. Currently, our position on this is there's a lot of conversations going on internally, following all the publications of reports and things last year. So at this point, we're just kind of putting a watching brief on those two elements of our work, so that we're ready to move quickly when it happens and when things occur. But there's no, we think that at this current time we need to wait for further information and things coming out of the departments itself. And we believe that this will happen in a timely fashion, but that means a lot of different things in different government departments. So we'll see where that comes from. And then the third thing that's on our list is looking at the AI piece. Is quite interesting. Obviously, we've done a bit of work and we've added that into the framework. And then Skills England have put out a framework, and there's some a recent website, a Skills Boost, AI Skills Boost package that's gone out there. And what we want to do is sort of document how all these different AI frameworks are suddenly popping up and how they sit against the one that we researched, and look for and evaluate those emerging initiatives against it, identifying recommendations potentially to look at how we may look at our framework, but also look at what we might do to recommend coherence across them, because clearly, you know, one of the original principles of the whole of this work was to have a common language, and having multiple AI frameworks is not helpful in that. So we want to have some clear recommendations on how we can bring a bit more coherence to that. Matt, I'll hand over to you for the next one.
That's great. Thanks, Kerry. Right at the top of the call, we heard from Liz about the importance of scaling impact, reaching more organisations, and really driving charter signatories. So one of the routes that we'd like to pursue this through this year is through education and through training. So we're in this sprint going to scope out a package of support that we could offer to folk in universities, folk in training providers, providing CPD training for leadership. We're also going to focus on a newly announced apprenticeship standard that focuses on AI and automation practitioners. These are people who will be right at the heart of organisations and the way that they're thinking around adopting AI, and try and use that as a really valuable lever to drive charter signatories, drive people using the self-assessment tooling and the training directory really at the heart of their learning. So the plan here is in sprint one, to scope out the type of support that we could offer, use that gap between sprint 1 and 2 to be able to socialise that and draw up some interest, and then use sprint 2 to co-design and evaluate these materials alongside educators. And actually the timings for things like leadership training, things like these new level 4 apprenticeships actually work really, really nicely. So we'll be right in there at the right moment. I think also as a team and as Future.Now, we're really experienced in being able to go out and talk about the mission and talk about the challenge. And what we'd like to be able to do is capitalise on that and develop some reusable materials so we can hopefully then ultimately equip others with those. So that's really our plan under section 4. If that's of interest to anyone on the call, please feel very free to drop a message in chat or drop us an email afterwards. But we'll certainly from our work stream be communicating out more detail in the next couple of weeks on that.
Fabulous. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kerry. Right, let's now come to Julie. We'll come to you first, Julie, and then Lily around the Accenture's involvement. But Julie, why don't you share the updates around this piece and our project?
Thank you, Holly. Like Naomi, I'm struggling with a bit of a cold today. I'm trying to get over it, shake it off, but I'll do my best to hold out. Yes, the funded trial is going very, very well. So let me just give the context a bit, which is that we won a chunk of money from the government's Digital Inclusion Innovation Fund, and decided to run a pilot here in the Southwest focused on employability. That project runs until the end of March. We've got to get all the reporting and evaluation materials together by the end of March as well, which is quite a tall order. However, Cosmic was already running the mainstream employability program called Restart, funded by DWP in the region. So we already had a pipeline of participants raring to go. We already had started at our own risk to build a curriculum around EDS, including the new AI skills. So we used some resource and we put that new curriculum in place, and as I say, that's the full set of 25 skills that are now embedded into that employability curriculum. As it says here, as of this week, we've got 34 learners progressing with that curriculum. More to come. Fingers crossed we will still fast track some more learners through in time to be part of the evaluation and the report. So yeah, we were able, I guess because of the positioning and the programme in place, we were able to really ramp up and do some very fast track delivery on, even despite the short timeline. I think we've made a really good go of it. The extra bonus, thanks to Hannah and Paddy, is bringing City and Guilds alongside during this project, and we now have in place a City and Guilds badging recognition for the sets of digital skills. I think there are 5 badges that have evolved to recognise the sets of EDS. I think that's pretty much good to go now, so we're just fine-tuning that. In other words, the learners that have progressed on our new curriculum will be able to claim their City and Guilds badges, and probably just as importantly, those badges will then be available for other employability and EDS training beyond our pilot. So really thrilled with that extra development, one that we didn't necessarily anticipate in the project plan. I'll hand over to Lily from Accenture to talk about the employer engagement piece, and then if I can come back on the toolkit piece. Holly, is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Yes, so Accenture's role on this pilot has really focused on engaging with employers. So within this sprint period, we have kind of 3 priorities, all focused on that employer engagement. So the first is to really gather actionable EDS insights from employers. So connecting with employers across a variety of sectors. Some of our priority sectors are health, construction, care, logistics, and local authorities. And we have been conducting interviews in order to gain insights on their digital skills needs and perspectives. So these insights look at things like what entry and early careers roles these organisations are hiring for, what digital skills needs those roles have, how they expect these needs might evolve in the future, how they assess digital capabilities within the hiring process, and ultimately our goal is to feed all of these insights into the employability curriculum in order to identify any common gaps in participant skills and to really strengthen the training and support that these participants are getting, and I guess to consequently then reduce barriers to hiring and support participant employment outcomes. We are also gathering insights via a digital skills survey to get broader, higher level perspectives on digital skills needs. Different members of this group have helped us to circulate that survey, so just wanted to say thank you very much. The second goal around employer engagement is to really optimise employment outcomes for participants. So as Julie mentioned, we have 34 participants based across the Southwest that we are supporting back into work. So really looking at how we can enhance the amazing work that is already being done to match participants to employment opportunities in order to increase access to relevant roles with employers. And then the third priority or goal of this sprint is to use all of this work that we've done to support with the deliverables of this pilot, so to evidence the impact and learnings of our employer engagement work in a final report that will evaluate the success of this pilot, and to enable replication and scaling of these employer engagement activities and the wider pilot via input to a regional toolkit, which I think Julie is going to come back onto. I just wanted to note that there is one further priority for us for this sprint period, which looks at proposing options for the future development of the Not in Work pathway. I'm really building on the learning from this pilot because Accenture's pro bono support comes to an end at the end of March. So with all of that in mind, I really wanted to put out a bit of a call to this group. If you are an employer and your organisation hasn't responded to our digital skills survey yet, we would really appreciate if you could spend 10 minutes completing this. I've just dropped the link to the survey in the chat. If you are an employer and you would be willing to have a quick call with us to discuss your digital skills needs in more detail, please reach out to me and let me know, as we would really value hearing your perspective and would love to connect with you. if you are particularly well connected to any relevant employers that you think would be willing to speak to us about this, to hear their digital skills needs, we would really appreciate any opportunity to speak with those businesses. Julie, I think I'm passing back to you. That's all from us.
Thanks, Lily. It's great to be working with you on that piece. I think for me, the sort of a vision around this particular pilot was to be able to hold up evidence by the end of March or early April, to hold up a bit of evidence to skills commissioners, whether that's government or local government, and actually be able to prove that having the 25 essential digital skills leads to a better job outcome. So that's what we're chasing with this pilot. We've believed that to be the case for 4 years delivering this programme. I just want something that is robust enough to say, you know, to commissioners that this is what it looks like, and of course then to help other regions to embed these programmes successfully in a similar way. The second part of the piece is about the toolkit. So we had a really good meeting last week about how to refine and really become a lot more targeted in our ambitions for the toolkit. So that's really coming together now. I think there will be a follow-on plan, you know, Sprint 2 type of activity that looks at the wider regional toolkit that I'm really keen to follow through on, as Holly knows, and really sort of make sure that we have that broad, not just the employability piece, but the broader piece around everyone coming together. I've done, even preceding the pilot and certainly during this latest period, I've done a lot of work in and out of local government, combined authorities. You know, they're all going through devolution debates, but trying to get onto the right tables. And what I've started to realise and recognise, and I think it's going to come to fruition in the Devon area, is that the new LSIPs, that's the Local Skills Infrastructure Plan, is due in with government. I think in draft by the end of this month, and then in final by the end of March. So there was a point in time when I really sort of knuckled down on making sure that EDS was recognised in LSIP documents. And again, I think that's something that other regions should have a very keen eye on, making sure that strategic plans, you know, at all levels, and certainly in the Commissioner's eyes, have that really strong reference to EDS. So hopefully, fingers crossed, another set of successes from the Southwest. Thanks, Holly.
Really
Thanks,
good. Thank
Julie.
you.
Holly, could I just add a couple of things on that? So, Julie, I
Mm.
just wanted to let you know that earlier today I was speaking to Phil Smith, who chairs Skills England, and he'd like a brief on this project. He's really interested in it. But he also referenced how energised Pat McFadden is, Secretary of State at DWP, around upskilling needs, and that he feels that this would be a really strong thing to get in front of Pat. So let's pick that up separately. I know we're speaking on Thursday.
Yes, please.
I know,
yes, please.
I know. I'm also in with the minister, the digital minister, on Thursday. So this is one of the things that's on my agenda to talk to her about. And I do think this should be a big feature of what we talk about at the Workforce Digital Skills Summit in April. Yeah, exciting.
Brilliant, really good. And you gave a little sneaky peek about the badging. So we thought we'd just show you the emerging badges that are coming out. And I know the team, Julia, at Cosmic are really energized, aren't they, about the ability to award these at the end of training for people when they've demonstrated their capabilities. And this is absolutely something that we can pick up and start to share with others. So we know that badging is coming out as being a real motivator for people. So the fact that we've got something that we're now going to test, and really Paddy and Hannah and Cosmic team have just moved so quickly on this. It's brilliant to see something so tangible coming through. So brilliant work. Okay, Liz, I think I'm handing back to you now, aren't I?
I think you might be, but I'm a bit overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by all this action. And look, let's remind ourselves, this is only the midpoint of the first sprint. This is all about setting ourselves up for success for the year. I mean, the project that Julie has just talked to us about, what we've done with that is we brought together a number of scenes of work. So, you know, it's the Nottingham work, it's the work that's happening in the Southwest. It was the potential to bid for digital innovation funding. It was, you know, bringing the digital badging in. So we're doing our best to try and you know, bring things together. But look, and this is what part of what we do at Future.now is we provide that infrastructure for collective action. So look, we definitely kicked off Sprint 1. We just had the Midpoint Connect. Workstream teams, look, you establish your own pattern of meetings to manage your sprint outcomes, but I'd really encourage you to be thinking about the next 5 weeks, because we know this is when a lot of the work really happens. The end of sprint workshop is 17th of March. It's going to be face-to-face in London, hosted by Accenture. That's when we'll bring everything together, reviewing outcomes, successes, and really thinking about where do we want to be by the end of 2026, and do all the constituent parts of what we're talking about add it up to enough for where we need to be, given we've got a 20 million challenge. And you know, we talk about it as a challenge, but it's also a really significant opportunity. You've only got to look at, you know, what is happening to the workforce, what is happening to the kind of the digital capabilities that we all need to know that this is really important to every single person in the UK. So that's really kind of my point there. So look, 5 weeks to go. So over the next few weeks, workstream teams, you know, leads, confirm your 26 plans and your priorities, and we'll be reaching out with you to do that. Be ready to share those progress updates. Corral any extra people that you need onto your teams, and let's hope that we've got some early wins, because having some progress to share, and I feel pretty sure there's going to be definitely progress from the work that's happening in the Southwest, just because the timelines on that are so tight. So that one's exciting. But the end of sprint workshop invites will be issued this week, so you'll be seeing those coming through. But look, the other thing, obviously I mentioned earlier, the summit. Please think about how you want to use the summit, how you want to use that to get people that should be involved. So Julie, who do we need who's working on LSIPs? Who are the people that we can invite? But Paul just gave you a sneaky peek. I think this is how we should end this call. It's not Houston, we have a problem. It is definitely, we are all systems go. There are, you know, our strategy is working. I could not be happier to work with such a brilliant group of people on this. And what I really love is some of the chat that's been happening here as people have been making connections. Lily, you got loads of hearts on your request for employer support. Paddy was offering support in on some of the other. Yeah, I've literally seen these happening live. So please do follow up on all of those. Let's get these teams running, and let's make sure that when we get to that end of sprint, we've really made some progress, and we've set ourselves up for 2026 to smash 2025. And when you read the progress update for 25, I think you're going to be genuinely proud of some of the things that we achieved together last year. As I say, it's not really optional. We've got to get people up. We've got to raise that floor on digital skills. So thank you. We're going to give you back some time, which I think is probably always welcome. For those of you with colds, go and have some honey and hot lemon. Other people, coffee, tea, whatever your drink of choice is. But thanks ever so much, and we'll see you all soon at the end of sprint at Accenture. Take care.